Hi, this is Patrick White from AA Commodities and Investments with your 2019 May WASDE report recap. So this past Friday, May 9th, we had the WASDE report come out. It was pretty interesting. We got an update on supply and demand here. Let's just go ahead and start off with a disclaimer. Just remember that everything here in this video is just my opinion. There's no direct trade recommendations from it. If you'd like to read the full disclaimer, please pause the video now. All right, guys. So yeah, this Friday we had an update on the corn and soybean supply and demand from the USDA, and basically in this 18-19 category over here, there's minimal changes. They cut ethanol about 50-60 million bushels, just because of the low margins that the ethanol industry has had this past year. So we've just had lower ethanol demand. Other than that, everything pretty much stayed the same. Going into 2019-20, this is where you got the most riveting changes, I guess. Here we had, the planted acres that stayed the same at 92.8 million acres. The yield was the USDA trend at 176. They did not change that. It's just based on their weather trend from 1988 to 2018. And this supply here is 17.16 billion bushels for a total U.S. domestic supply. That's a record. This all translates into a 2.485 billion bushel carryout, and that was about 300 million bushels more than the trade was expecting. So obviously, the reaction was bearish. However, we didn't close at those lows. We only closed about, down 1.5 on July corn. So, really just the wet weather and stuff still has guys, short covering. But then again, here on Sunday night on the overnight, we are down. So our stocks to use ratio is about 16.94%. There, and that's the highest stocks to use ratio since 2005, 2006, and that carryout of 2.485 billion bushels is the highest since 1987, 88. So it's kind of some historically bearish numbers from the USDA. And so I put together a couple of scenarios here. I've got a bull scenario here and a bear scenario over here. So in this bull scenario, I cut, this would be like if we had wet weather, I cut acres by 3 million acres, and I cut yield by 4 bushels an acre. That'd be pretty drastic, but I just kind of wanted to play with the numbers and see the extremes. So this would be my extreme bull scenario. If we did have that cut in acres of 3 million acres, we'd be down to 89.8, and you can see how that would, affect our carryout. Would get to 1628 there. That would be 11% stocks to use. And if you'll remember that. That 11 to 13% was kind of where we were floating last year. We did have a pretty good rally in 2018 there. So just kind of something to compare to. And then, the bearish scenario would be as if we found, another 500,000 acres, if the USDA added 500,000 acres and got that up to 93.3 million. And then we raised the yield up to 181. That's going to put the carryout to 3 billion bushels. Do I think this is possible? I don't think this is possible. I think the yield is, the yield of upper 170s to the low 180s is possible, but I don't think the USDA will mess with acres too much here, just especially with the wet weather that we've been seeing. So, by and large, these are two very, very different scenarios. The key takeaways is that it's going to, depend on, how many acres are cut between now and, the subsequent reports. And also, just where that yield falls. And I think this year, being wet, I wouldn't rule out seeing a cut in acres, but a raise in yield. So that's just my opinion. So going on down into soybeans here, really not a whole lot of changes. I guess we still had just basically by and large just a copy and paste here from the for the old crop soybean side of things. We had an ending stocks of 995. Million bushels here, and actually it was 970 that the USDA pegged, and that's just the 995 is what my numbers are showing up here as. So we've got stocks to use of 24.87%. Really not what we're looking for here, and it's just largely due to that good yield that we had, and the higher acres from last year. We really haven't seen a whole lot of exports factor in there. With that being said, though, for 1920, if you'll notice, we do have higher exports there at 1.95 billion bushels. Some are speculating that should go down by, anywhere between 100 to 500 million bushels, just because of the African swine fever over in China. So we'll, that's certainly my number one thing that I'll be monitoring here. But basically, yeah, they use the 84.6 million acres, and that is a copy and paste from the USDA Outlook meeting. We had a yield of 49.5, and that's right on trend there. The USDA did not change that. Still got that carryout of last year's carryout. So ending stocks, 970 million bushels is really not not overly bearish and not what we want here. A lot of guys were thinking this is going to be over 1 billion bushels, but we haven't obviously seen that yet. But it definitely could if exports are trimmed, or if we do get a higher yield than this 49.5 in here. So I've got a bull scenario as well. I left acres the same, just because I thought that if we do have a late planting in corn, and we have a bullish weather type of scenario, then probably won't help beans, but we'll see here. And I just used a 46 yield, and that only gets us down to 679 million bushels of ending stocks. That's a stocks to use ratio of 16.2%. This is an unlikely scenario, but if this were to happen, it would help us out. The ending stocks in this scenario still aren't crazy bullish, but I just don't really see how this can happen if we do get a cut in exports. So I think that's going to be the number one thing that I'm going to be watching there. So, and then our bearish scenario here is that if we have a yield, if we raise acres by say 2 million acres, if we miss out planting corn on we add 2 million acres of soybeans, we'll be up to 86.6 million acres with a yield of 53, and that would put us at an ending stocks of 1.37 billion bushels, at a stocks to use ratio of 32%. So certainly, not what we want to see here, but I think, these are realistic. I think the USDA is being realistic. I think that, the number one thing that I'm watching with soybeans is that export number, to see where they go from there. But if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. Just reply to the email and the newsletter, or give me a call at 712-262-7606. So I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you.